From a gameplay perspective, we wanted to take a 2D side-on view and be very reductive with how we approach the design. So we didn't want to make a 2D Dark Souls, we didn't want to make a Metroidvania or a roguelite. We wanted to look at what we thought made a 2D game special and kind of double down on that and juice it, if you will, throughout the gameplay experience. So we really boiled that down to three things. One is this ability to judge distance, left and right. The second is the ability to judge height, like height of an attack there versus the height of an attack lower. And the third is this ability to judge, see behind you. I'm reading and reacting to my opponent's attacks. So when the mother poses low, I have to push down to block low. When they go into a ready pose high, I have to push up to take a high guard. I can play most of the game that way. I can be very deliberate with how I approach things, being very defensive, or I can be more aggressive. So if the mother takes a high pose, I can simultaneously strike low to interrupt that. I can also duck under an attack and then follow up with a strike. You notice when I block, I lose ground. So if I was getting pushed against a wall, I would get stunned. If I was getting pushed off a ledge, I would probably fall and die. So I need to be aware of my terrain left and right, as well as what my opponent's threats are. I also have a fake that I can use, and again, I'm reading high and low, like her reaction. Like I fake high, and then I have to strike low, because she's biting high or low. I have a projectile that I can use to stun her. And Sarah did all the voices for the mother, and I did all the voices for the father. So this is the way we've been able to stay married and build the game.
Were you inspired at all by Nidhogg?
You know, everyone, like I would say like 25% of people say, is it like Nidhogg? And so...
No, I don't say that it is like
is it inspired?
Nidhogg.
That's a very good point, yes.
Maybe you've seen the game and say, oh, this looks cool, but we can work on this and evolve it.
It wasn't really the intention. It's interesting, like the evolution of this, we've done about 2 years of total development, and 1 year was all concepting, and then we've done a year of principal development. The original idea was to actually allow you to dodge into the back plane and into the foreplane. Okay. So you'd push up to like dodge in there and then this way. And it was too hard to read because you're really working against 2D in that case. So instead we said, what if we flip it, the axis, and make it up and down? And then that felt more natural to us, and then everything kind of just started to flow after that. Nidhogg, conversely, we felt was, I mean, I think it's a brilliant game, but we felt it was more like fencing, and we wanted more like martial combat.
Okay.
So rather than having to always hold a high or low guard, it's more about reading your opponent and then reacting. Okay. So if you're a Punch-Out fan, I don't know if you ever played any Punch-Out, Mike Tyson's Punch-Out for like the NES or the Wii.
I haven't played it.
So that's one of my favorite fighting games ever, because it's all about reading and reacting to your opponent. So your opponent will take like a high punch stance and then follow through.
And you're a Punch Club.
Yeah.
Back in the days.
Back in the day, NES.
Okay. Yeah, I played this when I was totally
wee. Yeah. So I love that because it's to me it's like a very pure system mechanically, and so I'm learning what my opponent's doing and then reacting accordingly. And so that was really the inspiration for the game, to be able to read your opponent and then push up the block or down the block or duck or so on and so forth. So what you're looking at there to start was a dream. The father's resting by this fire. We need better acting and stuff like that. But they're dreaming of their family, and that's who they're trying to get home to. So the whole story is, you start, you don't exactly know why you've been separated, and we tell you a little bit as you go along, but you've been basically separated from your family. That's also why you're moving left here. This is the first time you see this creature. Up until this point, about 30-45 minutes of gameplay, you've been fighting a creature called the Wogue, and this is a new creature called the Kinttori. The whole idea of mentioning that is that we try to tell all of our stories through set design, acting, kind of like Inside or Limbo, rather than cutscenes and dialogue. So these creatures here are the Wogue, and up until this point, they've been a challenge for you to fight. This is the first time you're coming across them, and they've been killed by the spear, torn in half. So a little bit of mystery as to what the heck actually caused that. So you saw a little bit of a couple different things there. One, we have what we call a soft lock-on system. So you're locked onto a target like Dark Souls style, but if I'm moving this way, I can pivot and attack this way, but just by holding the opposite direction. And that allows me to temporarily break that lock-on, as long as I continue attacking that direction, and then when I'm done, it re-pivots. So kind of like Arkham had the kind of like a soft lock-on system, and that goes back to that principle of in 2D you can see behind you. So we didn't want it to just be like, oh, you shoot this way or attack this way, and then turn and then the other way. We wanted to make it so you can kind of like pivot your point of movement. So that little icon meant that I have that guy had no items on him. This guy here I can loot. The father would actually vocalize a little prayer there. At the end of the day, narratively, the main character is not a warrior or demigod or something. They're our father trying to get home. And so we want to have role-playing elements, and I'll show you some of those, but also subtle touches that kind of emphasize that. We don't have any HUD. I mean, this is inventory you can bring up. We don't have any HUD. It's actually a little bit hard to see there. We show damage on the character. Okay. So blood on their tunic. You can see the enemies are the same. They have more blood as they get hurt. Sorry, if you press the interact, you can kick things. I was trying to pick this up. I can heal by eating certain items like bread. I can use that to heal myself with poison. This restores some health. I'm actually hurt right now, but just to show you guys. These elements here I can use to augment my existing equipment. So rather than like a +10 sword or +5 armor or something like that, I could use, for example, these jawbones and this arm bone that are actually trinkets that mean something to my opponents, sew them into my cloak, and that actually affects the way opponents react to me. Okay. So for instance, if I replay this here, I don't have any of those things sewn into my cloak right now, so to them I'm kind of neutral. This particular collective kind of lives, so you'll see their and so if I just wait here, they wait, they don't really know how to judge me. When I draw my sword, they engage. And so these are like little things that the player can do to adjust kind of how they react to different situations. The hero has 3 health points. Every enemy has 3 health points. So there's no concept of big bosses or really long, like protracted fights. It's all about reading the encounter and your opponents, and then overcoming them through your skills, the mastery of kind of your skill set. So very like kind of Nintendo philosophy to challenge. So rather than like a difficulty curve that gets harder and harder over time, we want to have teaching moments for the character in the first like half an hour or so of gameplay, and then have a novelty curve that keeps going up, but the difficulty is actually quite flat. So that's what we always found in like Mario and stuff like that, and also in puzzle games like Inside or Limbo. Like the first puzzle is not really harder than the last puzzle, it's the novelty that kind of changes.
And this game is going to be published by the Gerati?
Yes.
Yeah. How this cooperation came into fruition?
Yeah, so we actually started, just Sarah and I, like working kind of out of our apartment, trying to make a game, and we posted GIFs and things like that on TigSource. Do you know TigSource? No. So it's called the Indie Game Source. Phil Fish, who did Fez, he was one of the first big names on it, and they do devlogs on there, where you share your ideas and other devs comment on them, and that's where we just showed like stuff from originally it was called North, the game then, kind of Project North, and Nick actually saw it and was working on Slain at that time, the #1, said, hey, we'd like the look of your game, would you like to start chatting? And over the last like year and a half, we've kind of built that relationship, so yeah, it's been a lot of fun working with them.